Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you on this little guy right here. This is the CRKT Monument Pocketknife, which is a very, very interesting piece, more because of the history and who it represents than anything else. But it's a very interesting piece, and it was one that I did want to give it, a full video to. But what we're going to go ahead and do is do one of those disassembly and quick review sorts of things, right? Where I'll take the thing apart, we'll see how the construction is, and then talk a little bit more about how I found the knife and, give you my overall thoughts. But first, before we go any further, let's do some size comparison. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. What we're going to see here is that in terms of the size of the handle, it's actually right around Delica size, but the overall blade length is a little bit longer, and the sharpened blade length is way longer. Here it is against the Spyderco PM2. And so what we're going to see here is this is actually not a particularly large knife. And then actually I'll throw it up against the, come here, another Italian CRKT. What I would argue is the very best thing that CRKT has ever made, and that is this 25th anniversary cricket home front that was made over there in Italy. So, size comparison, but also in many ways, comparison. That doesn't even make sense. Okay, moving on. So what is... Oh, and then, by the way, I also want to let you know that this guy was sent to me by CRKT. CRKT and I, we have a relationship that goes way back. They know me. They know what I do. They know I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be gem, might be junk. They did still send it along. They also know that I've said some negative things about this stuff before. So, and then it's been a positive relationship, but of late, I actually really haven't looked at their stuff much because, well, oftentimes, a lot of it's been not that interesting. But one of the people from CRKT reached out to me and said, hey, Nick, we got something a little bit special here. We got a project that I'm really proud of. This is one of their product folks. I don't want to name names. That's tacky. But basically, they said, I think you might be interested in checking this one out. Are you? And I said, yes, actually. Yes, I am for this one. But nonetheless, we do have to assume this is the absolute best quality controlled one of these guys ever. More than anything else. And we do have to, and I have to let you know that I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. But this guy was sent to me by CRKT. So what we're going to go ahead and do is start off by taking this guy apart. And as we do so, maybe I'll talk a little bit about what's going on here. So this is a strange knife in a number of different ways. But the thing that is most notable about it, looks like I'm going to take out the pivot and this screw, and then this is probably just a pin. That's holding everything together. This looks like maybe T8. Yeah, T8 pivot. One thing that's worth noting, by the way, is this pivot is going to look a little bit fancy. Well, that's because it is. That's not just a laser pattern. This is actually Damasteel. This is one of the first times, if not the first time, CRKT has used Damasteel. This is their blue-tongue Damasteel in the pivot there. And that's kind of unusual, but it also makes a lot of sense given the provenance of this knife. And good Lord, that's a lot of thread locker. Look at all that up in there. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and take out the other screw here, which I think is T6. Yep. Pop that loose out of there. And this should allow us to take the knife apart. I imagine it's going to be a pain in the neck to get apart because of this pin here, which is deeply sunken. But what I'm going ahead and use is this little spudger tool. And by the way, if you're curious about this or any of the other tools I use in my disassemblies, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools, where you will see a full accounting of everything I've got there. But with the amount of thread locker we got here, I think this is going to take... Oh, no, there we go. I got it. So, yeah, I'm slowly popping this guy open here. Is there another screw I'm missing here? Is there another screw? No, that's a liner screw. There is a screw underneath the clip here, which, by the way, is a nice detail. But that's holding the frame, the liner lock in. I really don't think that there's another screw here. I think it's just going to take a bit. Come on. What am I doing with myself here? I know I've got the pivot loose. That's something at least. Let's play Can I Push the Pivot Through? Here, I'll use the other side here. If I can, I'll have a better shot at it with the blade partly closed. Nope. That doesn't want to come out either. Can I get this guy open? I really should be able to, but it's possible that there's some thread locker that got locked in there. If I could push the pivot out, that would allow me to take the blade out of play here. That's a screw on the other side. I'm an idiot. I mean, that's not news. But there's a screw on the other side here. So that's why it wasn't opening. Because there's a screw there. Okay. This is part of the reason why you should be better than me. Well, actually, there are many, many reasons why you should be better than me. But one of the reasons there is that you don't want to use too much force until you fully understand what's going on. I thought for all purposes that was actually a pin going all the way through. But nope, I am just an idiot. The real question then becomes, what else have I missed? No, it's popping apart now. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to take the blade out of play real quick. And then pop that off. Okay, good. Nothing feels too warped. Oh, that was not my finest freaking hour. But, alas, I should be honest. I should keep that in. Probably better for my reputation if I didn't, but I suppose I should. All right, so now that I've revealed myself to be a flaming idiot, let's go on ahead and clean this little guy up. What we're going to see here is actually a lot of gunk. This is very, very gunky. I'm going to take a Q-tip here and dip it in rubbing alcohol and just kind of chase the gunk out of the pivot here. Also get rid of that massive amount of thread locker in the middle there. Oh, okay, there's a little stainless washer in there. So I can clean that up a little bit. And reinsert, at least for the moment. The bearings are tiny. These are really small bearings, right? Little captive bearing cage here. Interesting. But very, very small, which allows the knife to be a little thinner, although the blade steel is very thick. So they could have used bigger bearings and pocketed it out, but who am I to tell Michael Walker how to design a knife? He says as he does so. Whoops! Pretense alert! Anyways, moving on. So I'll clean that off. That is, in fact, the main thing that makes this knife interesting. That is the fact that this is a Michael Walker knife. This knife was written, he says, not remembering what medium he's critiquing. This knife was designed by Michael Walker. Michael Walker is one of those people that maybe some folks new to the hobby aren't as familiar with, but he is the inventor, among other things, of the Walker liner lock. He has had some of the innovations that have made modern knife making maybe not possible. Knife making happened before Michael Walker, but sure as hell made them better. And he has invented more locks than I've ever taken apart. There are, a number of people who you should respect in the knife world, but Michael Walker is maybe preeminent among them. He is an absolutely incredible knife designer. The important thing and the interesting thing, Michael Walker has designed a lot of knives out there in the world, but one of the things that's very unique about this guy, and the thing that made it jump off the page, so to speak, by the way, I'm going to use some 10-weight, not 10-weight, just the original knife pivot lube here. Just pop a little bit there, and put it in. But one of the things that's most unique and interesting about this particular instantiation of Michael Walker's stuff, because I've looked actually at some of the stuff he's done before. I looked at one from Klotzli, I believe Swiss brand. But this is very much in the style of Michael Walker's custom knives, right? Michael Walker is a custom knife designer above all else, and his actual custom stuff tends to go for around the price of your average new car. Well, okay, maybe not your average new car. It is 2023, but let me put it this way. You can buy, in many cases, several good used cars for the price of one Michael Walker. And that's assuming it's nothing special among his very many pieces. Michael is one of those folks. Okay, what am I doing wrong? How am I being an idiot? Probably a variety of ways, but none of them immediately apparent. I'll clean that out, too. I'm going to go on ahead and push the liner in, and hopefully that will get everything slipping together. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Do I have both bearings in? Yeah. See, now I'm self-conscious after that little bit of idiocy. By the way, that's part of the reason I use something like this. This will break before the knife does, by and large. So, anyways, but it didn't. Hey. I'll go ahead and I'll put in that stealthy screw, which you can't tell is a screw at all, except for the fact that it has a screw head on it. Wow, you all need to find a better YouTuber like freaking Stat. Okay. I need to align the backspacer here so that it is in the proper positioning. But anyways, Michael Walker is a custom designer, and you can't afford his stuff. Maybe there are a few of you watching this who can't afford his stuff. But if you're watching this, why are you watching a CRKT review? Go buy his stuff, right? You have better things to be doing right now, and that's buying a Michael Walker and making folks like me jealous that you can buy a Michael Walker. But the thing that I like about this, and the thing that's maybe making this more interesting than your average Michael Walker design knife, is that this is really in the style of his custom work. You look at this knife, if you are familiar with Michael Walker and familiar with the knife market broadly, and there is really no question in my mind that this is a Michael Walker design. This looks well, okay, not exactly, but it looks very, very much like the work that Michael Walker usually does as a custom maker. It has a lot of his custom voice in it. Michael Walker's stuff is actually, I think it's not for everybody. I mean, no maker's stuff is, but it is very, very much sort of rococo. It is very flamboyant. It is very out there. And I think that this is the first of the production knives I've seen that he's been involved with that really captures the nature and style of his work. And I think that's really cool, right? What CRKT has done here, and I think part of the reason, and I don't want to put words in somebody's mouth, but I can see why there would be pride in the person I talked to at CRKT for, helping bring this to life, in that it gives people who would never in a million years be able to own a Walker a good opportunity to be able to own a knife that is not just designed by Walker, but is in the style of Walker. You might be thinking, Nick, come on. There's Michael. I mean, like I said, this is a person who is so seminal in knife design that for a knife geek like myself, oh my God, this is wildly good. This is wildly, I can't even, he is well respected. We'll put it that way. So how do I feel about the knife? There are some things, actually, all of these things I've been saying, I should never critique the man who invented the line of lock. I'm going to go on ahead and try that, right? I'm going to be this pretentious jerk. There are actually a couple of things that I'm not a big fan of with this particular pocket knife. The biggest of which is the lock bar access is a little bit tough. It's not terrible, right? But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more scalloping on this side so I could jam my thumb in there a little bit more readily and get access to that lock bar, right? The tip of the lock bar is also a little bit sharp, but I think that's actually on Italy and the factory that made this rather than on Michael Walker himself. And then finally, the tension on this clip is a little bit high. It's got this rolling sort of clip detail, which is another Walkerism, right? So this is designed to not pull on your pocket, but to, here, I'll use this little cloth here. It just kind of rolls onto the fabric of your pocket there. And so it works quite well, actually. It's a nice little system, but it's a little bit tight, and there's just not a lot of ramp to it. Once you kind of loosened it up a little bit, and I did have to loosen it up a little bit, it was much, much easier. But, those are really my complaints about it, right? The lock bar access could be a little bit better, and this was a little over-tightened. But again, you can blame that on the factory. This damage, by the way, is just time for me carrying it. I'm trying to remember. I think that was a brick wall someplace. But anyways, on the whole, though, my feelings here are a couple of things. It's well done, right? This is a knife that is quite well made by CRKT standards. Very often, CRKT will cheap a knife to death, right? They will bring the bean counters in, and those bean counters will keep removing and removing and removing value and features and things like that until it is no longer a thing. This is, in fact, still a good quality knife. And they're using this Italy factory to do more of that on a regular basis. And I do appreciate that. I like that they are working with higher-end factories, and the factory that they're working with in Italy is, well, doing good work here, right? The steel here is M390, which is a very nice steel, and they've actually come down to a reasonably thin edge on it, which, again, I very much appreciate. The stock is a little on the thicker side for what I generally like to carry, but at the same time, again, it's not so far apart from the custom sort of approach, right? So, I think that they've done a nice job there. And then finally, there's the price, and these are actually still available. Right? They do have a version of it with a Damascus blade without the blue anodization, but they also have a version, and the Damascus one is $500, which is a good chunk of change, right? It's the only time you're paying $500 for a Michael Walker in Damascus, but still, this version right here on the table is $275, which actually, all things considered, is not that bad, right? If this were a knife that I was just buying from some random brand by some random maker, it's a little on the higher side. But again, this is a Michael Walker. It's designed by Michael Walker. It has a big old Damascus steel pivot, and everything is working great with it, right? It is well done. The detent is good. The flipper is quality. This is a very, very nicely done knife, and it's $275 made in Italy. Okay. You know what? That's absolutely fine. And given everything that they're doing and that what they're bringing to the table here, I think that's great. So ultimately, my feeling on this is, there are a couple of places where I might like the design to be a little bit different. I feel very, very pretentious, more so than usual saying that, but, such is life. I guess that's why you come here, for me to complain about everything. But on the whole, I'm actually very, very glad that this happened. I'm very glad that this knife exists, because this gives collectors of my caliber. And I want to be very clear here. I am a knife collector. You might have noticed this at some point in time during the history of my channel reviewing knives. But I am not at the level that can ever buy a Michael Walker, right? His work is prohibitive for me price-wise. There is just no way that I could afford any of his custom work, given who he is, who his clientele are, etc. It's just not happening. And so buying one of his designs was never on the table. But for a lot of people now it is, right? It's not the same thing. It's not a custom by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a Michael Walker. It feels like it has his DNA design-wise. It feels like it, and I think for a lot of people that matters. That's enough. And so ultimately the question is going to come down to, is this a good knife? Yeah, it's a good knife, right? It's M390. It's a good line of lock. It's a good flipper. Works. Can carry it. You could use this the rest of your life. But more importantly, the thing that is more interesting and more crucial to it is that this is a Michael Walker. This is designed by somebody who has had more impact in this industry, perhaps, than any other human. I feel like that's pretty fair, short of the person who invented steel. That feels like a reasonable thing. And it's one that you can own, and it's one that really does feel like his work. So I'm glad to see this. I totally get it, and I think this is a really cool thing that they're doing. And frankly, if CRKT goes down this road further, right, this is a Michael Walker, that's amazing. But there are lots of other people who've had really good, outsized impacts on the industry. If they can keep working with them and keep designing knives that are very much them and that are very much made well, right? Had they done this poorly, had they budgeted this to death, it would have been tragic. It would have been sad. I would have been crying. But they did this well enough that it feels like it's an honest tribute. It feels like it's a real, actual kindness, both to the buyers and to perhaps Michael Walker. I don't know how he feels about it, but I'd be pretty okay with it, right? But anyways, if they want to keep doing this and keep finding the people who've had outsized impacts, they've done this before, of course, right? This is a Ken Onion, right? But I hope we see more of these love letters to the designers who've really made the industry, because I think that's a place where CRKT has not only the ability in terms of volume and in terms of production resources and in terms of respect to be able to reach out and work with folks like this, and I think they have the desire. Because, as much as I give them heck, I know some of the product people there, and they care about knives. They care about knife making, and this shows me that. Right? As much as I'm going to give them crap about all the other things that they try to do for $20 that needed to be $80, they did this right for $275, and they did a good thing, I think, for the collecting community, and it is something I appreciate, and it is a really cool knife. So there you go. Read as much bias as you would like into this. That bias comes from respect. Mind the disrespect. Anyways, I digress. But nonetheless, I think even on its own, this stands as a pretty damn good knife. And if you are interested in picking one of these guys up, you should walk not run well, actually, no, you should probably run not walk over to CRKT's site and pick one of these up before they're gone forever, and you can't get something like this. Although hopefully they'll be doing more of these in the future. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.